have the latest and greatest bone conduction headphones from Shokz, but we also have two much cheaper pairs from Amazon. So we're gonna go head to head with these bad boys and see if it's worth paying more. I'm also gonna give you my verdict on the ones that I would choose if I had to pick one pair for running, cycling, and gym-based workouts, as well as the ones that I think are best value for money.
Which ones do you think, just by looking at them without touching them, price highest to lowest, so the most expensive ones first?
Okay, so I think these are the most expensive ones. And I think these are middle price.
Middle price.
Mainly because this looks like the cheapest because there's less of the bits and bobs.
Try them on, see what you think of them, and then I'll reveal how much they are.
Okay.
And if you're right, I'll give you £5.
Am I allowed to keep the one that I like the most?
Yeah, that's a deal. That's a deal.
Yay!
Put the cheapest ones on first.
This is nice.
On, yeah? Most expensive, yeah?
How are they out of the box and what do you get with them? Well, you can clearly see from the packaging which ones are the most expensive ones. Now, I can't actually pronounce the ones that come from Amazon, so we're gonna call them based on their price. The cheapest ones cost me just £6.99. I cannot believe that. I don't know how they do that delivered for £6.99, a pair of bone conduction headphones. But anyway, they came in this super small box, just in kind of plastic encasing with a USB charging cable. We'll get onto the testing of them in a minute, but surprisingly they have Bluetooth 5.0, which is pretty impressive. They're rain and sweat proof. They're also super light at just 26 grams. Incredibly, they say they've got 8 hours of battery life when being used, and they charge in just 2 hours. The middle of the road ones were actually the ones I was most excited about. I don't know why, but I just thought they would be the best. But I still can't get over the fact that we got a pair for £7. But anyway, I paid £34.99 for these, and you have a choice of two colours. Annoyingly, they're now in the Black Friday sale, like the Shokz as well. So paying that extra money, we now get a soft sunglass type bag for them, which I think is just perfect, and you get that USB charger. They also have Bluetooth 5.0, they're water and sweat resistance, again super light, weighing exactly 26 grams, and a suggested battery life of 5 to 7 hours, which can be charged fully again after just 2 hours. Now onto the big dogs, the most expensive ones. You can see some pretty premium stuff here when it comes to the packaging. And I've got to admit, I'm an absolute sucker for that. I know it's just packaging and it doesn't really matter, but it is nice. It provides some sort of therapy. Now, I paid £140 for these, and obviously, again, they're in the Black Friday sale, but these are boasted to be Shokz's most elite headphones yet. They're an upgrade on the previous versions, they're Aeropex, and these are the OpenRun Pros. In the box, we get a nice hard case, which I actually really like. I think it's a really awesome case. They fit really well. It's quite a snug case. It doesn't take up a lot of room, but I haven't found myself using it much at all because I find them pretty robust and safe in my bag without them being in a case whatsoever. But obviously that's a really nice touch and it's going to keep them safer, and it might stop you from losing them as well. You've got to check this out. Check out the charging cable. It's magnetic. A pretty sexy and premium touch here, and it feels super satisfying to plug these in and charge them. But I also actually worry about unique chargers. A bit like my Garmin watch, if you lose them, it might be a bit of a nightmare to get hold of a new one, and they might cost a little bit more compared to the cheaper models, which have a standard USB type charger that you can get pretty universally. We've got loads of these just lying around the house, so don't have to worry so much about losing them or breaking them. It's a standard charger which is easy to get hold of. These have Shokz's 9th generation of bone conduction technology. I've no idea what that is, but they also have Bluetooth 5.0, so we get an extra 0.1 here with the Bluetooth. Again, no idea what that does either, but it sounds pretty cool. They have an awesome battery life of 10 hours playtime, and they charge fully within just an hour. They also have a quick charge feature, so just 5 minutes of charging gives you an hour and a half of playtime, which I think is an awesome feature, because if you forget to charge them and you're just about to train or go out for a run or cycle, you can quickly chuck them on, and that's just going to take 5 minutes and it will get you through your workout. They weigh in at 29 grams, so a whopping 3 grams heavier than the cheaper models. Now onto the fun stuff, actually using them, and then we'll get onto the verdict. But this is important because they aren't all great at every activity. So depending on what you're planning on using them for might impact your decision on which ones to get. I have to say though, straight up, they're all totally awesome in the sense that you don't have to have anything in your ears, which obviously means you can hear everything else going on around you. Whether you're running or you're cycling, you can hear traffic, or if you're in the gym, you can hear others around you, which I think is really important, and it's a great safety feature. And it means you can listen to music whilst doing these activities, where in the past you might not want to listen to music because of traffic and things like that. And I've actually used them a fair bit on the Turbo Trainer, where I'm watching a video and they're connected to my phone, but I've also got music on in the gym, which is kind of a nice thing about these that you can't get from a normal pair of headphones. Now I'm just guessing, but I think most people will use these when it comes to running or cycling. Comment below what you use your headphones for, but I can absolutely say they all work, but there is differences in terms of performance. The cheapest ones I found a little bit harder to get a good fit on. When I was using them in the gym and I was doing exercises like pull-ups, push-ups, toes to bar, etc., where movements are a bit jerky and inconsistent, I felt like they were falling off at times, and a couple of times they did actually fall off, which is a little bit of an inconvenience. However, for running and cycling, where the movements are quite steady and consistent, once you're in the right place, they felt absolutely fine. I was actually really impressed with the volume that these things kick out. Also really happy with how quickly they connect, how easy it is to feel for the buttons and adjust the volume and things. And I didn't have any issues whatsoever at all with them disconnecting at any point or having issues with rain or sweat. However, definitely the biggest downfall of these cheaper ones is they sound really quite tinny, especially if you get things a little bit louder, you start putting up the volume, they sound more and more tinny and you start to lose that sound quality. Personally, I'm not a sound nerd at all, but there's definitely a difference when you compare it to the more expensive ones. With that being said though, you can still hear your music completely fine, it's just not the best when it comes to quality. These middle of the road ones I actually found to be the nicest fit for me personally, and I think that's because of these circle-like pads. They seem to be a little bit weightier than the other two, and they just seem to sit really nicely in place. Because actually with all of them, they can fit in a slightly different place, which does impact how much you hear. I guess there's a certain bone or place where they fit on the bone that gives you the best sound quality. When using them for cycling, running and gym work, I had no issues with them falling off or moving around whatsoever. I would say though is there might be a little bit of risk in terms of creating some pressure points with these pads. They're a little bit of a tighter, more snug fit, and I think maybe if you wore them for a long period of time or you had a bit of a wider face, because of that, you might get a bit of kind of soreness or pressure points. It's not something I personally experience at all. They're definitely a step up in terms of the sound when you compare them to the cheaper ones. They sound really great, and there's a significant difference between the cheaper ones and these ones. We'll get on to how they compare with the more expensive ones, but I really don't find them lacking in any particular area when it comes to the sound. Another thing I really like about the design of these is the buttons and the kind of little modules here. It has a slightly raised on and off button, which for me is the most important button on there, and it's just easy to find without having to take them off or fiddle around or get used to them. Whereas with the Shokz, I actually had to take them off a couple of times because I wasn't sure where I was pressing or if I was pressing on the right button. Once you know where everything is though, it obviously becomes less of an issue, but I do think that's quite a nice little touch. Again, they connect super fast and I had absolutely no issues with waterproofing or losing connectivity. Before the final verdicts then, how are the most expensive pair, the Shokz OpenRun Pro? Well, performance-wise, without a doubt, I have to say they're the absolute best. The sound quality is the best, the volume control and the sensitivity in the volume is super good. It's not as tinny as the other ones. They also fit great, but in a different way. Despite them actually being the heaviest, I found myself questioning whether I had them on or not. Now I think that's because of the materials they're made out of. They're really quite soft and flexible, and that allows them to sit really well without putting too much pressure on anywhere, and they don't move around a lot either. And over the weeks that I've been testing these, I've been opting for these more and more often. Charging is really quick, the connection is absolutely fine, and they seem to be the most robust out of all of them. I can't remember exactly the waterproof ratings, but just from the build quality, I imagine that these can withstand a lot more than the other two.
Alright, what do you think of those?
So the sound don't project as well as the cheaper ones.
Okay.
So I'm starting to think that these are cheaper.
You reckon?
Yeah,
Cool.
Because
And how did those two fit?
yeah, so these ones were a bit more flexible than these ones. Quite good actually. So I still think these are the most. I think these are now middle price.
Alright, so this is your reorder after you've used them. Which one's the cheapest ones?
They just didn't sound very good, and they just weren't good quality.
Okay, alright. And then next up, the middle price?
So I think these were quite good, but not as good as the first pair.
The ones that you thought were cheapest first were those ones?
Yeah, it's just these. You can actually hear it quite well, and they're a good fit, they're comfortable. They're not like all jiggly, higgledy and stuff.
Nice. So middle to start off with,
Yeah.
a $7.99.
That's quite cheap.
Yeah, super cheap. And those ones there, what you said cheapest to start off with,
Yeah.
are £140.
They are good quality though.
Yeah, and then those ones, which you said they were most expensive to start off with,
Yeah.
and you decided they were middle price, are $34.99.
So I think I actually priced them exactly.
Yeah, in the end, after trying them.
Which do I think then are the best for overall value, and what would I personally pick if I was just to buy one pair? For me, without a doubt, the best value pair I actually think are the £7 pair. They're just amazingly good for such a cheap price. They're so much cheaper than any of the other ones. And if you're not going to be using them a whole lot, and maybe you're just using them for a few key workouts, and maybe you have them as kind of an addition to other headphones that you've got, and you're just going to use them for when you need to hear traffic and things like that, then I think these are a great pick. If I did have to pick one pair though, for me, it would be the most expensive ones. It would be the Shokz OpenRun Pros. I know they're so much more expensive, and they're expensive for a pair of headphones, but if I'm going to be using them for running, cycling, in the gym, and also use them when I'm editing videos on my laptop, and it's a one-time purchase, for me, it's got to be these ones. Now, after I've spent a small fortune to make this video, hopefully it saves you some money and allows you to pick the best ones for you. But if you do want to see more videos like this one, then please subscribe. It's obviously completely free, and I'll see you in the
You have
next
the
one.
£5, but I don't know if you can keep that pair.
Why?
It's my favourite pair.
Well, I'm having them.
What about these other two?
No.
But you said they were good.
Yes, but I like this pair best.